Hello and welcome to this CoolLED tutorial video, where I'm going to explain how to use Sequence Runner with Nikon's NIS Elements. Sequence Runner is a cost-effective approach for high-speed imaging with low phototoxicity, where the light source is triggered using TTL signals directly from a camera. Importantly, you will need a CoolLED Illumination System that is both supported in NIS Elements and features the Sequence Runner function. This is currently the PE800 series, PE300 Ultra and PE340 Fura. In addition, you will need a camera that includes a TTL output and a compatible BNC trigger cable, which is often supplied with the camera. With Nikon's NIS Elements, you will also need the Advanced Research version with the Triggered Acquisition module and the Illumination Sequence module. Our setup here uses the Nikon Ti2 and CoolLED PE800, but the guidance in this tutorial can be used for other compatible CoolLED illumination systems. Please bear in mind this tutorial specifically focuses on setting up Sequence Runner. If using the CoolLED illumination system for the first time, you can visit the CoolLED website where you can find full product installation guidance detailed in the relevant product manuals. NIS configuration tutorials for our products are also available either as a quick start guide PDF or a video. The hardware setup for Sequence Runner is simple. If not done so already, the CoolLED illumination system must be connected to the PC via the USB for control in NIS Elements. Then it's a case of connecting the camera directly to the light source from the TTL output of the camera to the global TTL input of the light source. It's important to note that Sequence Runner only works via the global TTL input of the light source. We're also using a Pinkel filter setup for speed and contrast. I'm adding single band excitation filters to the PE800 to avoid the latency and cost of the filter wheel. Ensure the filters face the right way, with the arrow on the side of the filter facing down for the PE800 series, or according to this diagram shown here for other compatible illumination systems. Then secure the filters with a hex key. We also have a multiband dichroic and emission filter in the filter cube for our setup here. When it comes to the software setup, I just want to reiterate that we are focusing on configuring Sequence Runner, where the CoolLED illumination system is already installed and working in NIS. The first step is to ensure the NIS Illumination Sequence module is installed. So navigate to the Windows Apps and Features, and search for NIS in the list. Select NIS and select Modify instead of Uninstall. Again, select Modify and click Next. And we're retaining the same settings as we used in the original installation. So we'll click Next. And now we have the Modules window, and this is where we need to select the illumination sequence. It's worth noting that if you're installing NIS for the first time, this Modules window will also appear, and it's the same thing. You need to also select the illumination sequence and click Next. Click Next again unless you want to add any more devices. And finally, click Finish. You also need the Triggered Acquisition module for NIS Elements, which is an optional extra, so please ask Nikon for purchase and installation instructions. And you are now ready to launch NIS Elements. Once NIS loads, it's time to set up the software for Sequence Runner. At the bottom of the CoolLED pad, in this case the P800 pad, select Configure, and this opens the configuration window. Under Connection, we need to select USB plus Global BNC in brackets sequencer. Click OK. And illumination will now also be controlled using TTL. The next step is to add the Triggered Acquisition module window, which is where Sequence Runner is configured. Navigate to Acquire and select Triggered Acquisition. This opens a window and you can drag this up to the Acquisition window here, and this creates a second tab. Now you need to select the LEDs you wish to include within the illumination sequence. Use the blue cross to add new LEDs to the sequence. You can use the red cross to remove the highlighted LED, and you can use the arrows here to move your highlighted LED up and down the sequence. And you can clear your entire sequence and start again by using the Delete All red cross. In our example, we want to run a 3-channel acquisition for DAPI, FITSI and TRITSI using the 400, 470 and 550 nanometer LEDs. So we will first select the 3 LEDs for our sequence using the blue cross, but you can see these are not the correct LEDs. So we can change these using the drop down. The number on the left here indicates the position of the LED within the sequence. So as the light source receives the first TTL pulse from the camera, it will trigger the 400 nanometer LED. The second pulse will trigger the 470, and so on, and it will cycle back through the sequence for every TTL pulse received. In this window you can also change the power or intensity and the exposure, but you can also do this in the acquisition window, either using the camera settings or using the LED sliders here. However, whichever window you alter these values in, then the other window will also reflect this. Finally, in the Triggered Acquisition window, it's really important to ensure you have the Enable Triggering box selected here. Once you're happy with the settings, you can go onto the Acquisition window and select Live to begin the acquisition. You can see that the LEDs here, you can't select different LEDs as you can in USB mode, but what you can do is you can change the intensity in real time. So we want to maximize the intensity for the selected LEDs, 400, 470 and 550. And we can also change the exposure here. And you can see we now have an image. Sequence Runner is designed for high-speed imaging, and if you want to further increase the speed, then there are a couple of ways you can do this. You can reduce the region of interest by selecting the ROI box here, and you can use the drop down to select your size. So you can see we can now reduce our exposure time. You can also select fast time-lapse acquisition. If you go to Acquire, select Fast Time-Lapse and save your data only to memory. So for example, we're doing 400 frames here. Apply this and select Run Now. And you can see we have a high-speed acquisition time-lapse achieved here. I hope this video has given you a good start on configuring and using Sequence Runner for high-speed imaging, but if you have any questions, please do get in touch. Thank you for watching this CoolLED tutorial video.